All right, 2024, fucking real.
Here we
Luke,
are.
Stefan, and Ryan. Welcome aboard, brothers.
Thanks for having us, bro.
I've done absolutely no fucking preparation to this. I'm going to actually start calling the podcast No Fucking Idea. But it seems to work this way, man. So, but the one thing I have prepared is I've got each one of you boys to think about a topic to bring to the table. I know, Stefan's, you've got a few, brother, and you're more than welcome to share a few of those topics. But I think we'll start by sharing the topic, man, and we'll get stuck into this. Already we've had a few good conversations, and I feel like this is going to be good, man. I'm
Me
excited.
too, bro. I mean, I wish that we could have just kicked off right from the middle of conversations that we were in before this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always the way, man. Like you sort of want to just everyone to be in silence before we push record. But even afterwards, you've got to have the record button still going, even though we've said goodbye to everyone, and because the conversation just keeps rolling.
Yeah.
Well, bro, I mean, if you don't mind me just hijacking the hosting role for a minute.
Yeah.
You were saying something that really had my attention captured at the start, which is you were saying, first of all, you really want to get fucking real. Like this year, you want to take it to the next level and go deep.
Yeah.
And then you said, like, you're feeling like there's shit going on in the world that you're maybe struggling to contend with, or it's working against us as a whole. And I'm curious to know what that is to you. Like, what were you talking about?
Well,
Boom.
yeah, here we go. Where to start with it, man? I mean, look, from my childhood, I was never forced to go to school. It was always up to my own ability. Like where I come from, a single mum in fucking the Bronx of New Zealand. And also my mum being young, a lot of parties and things going on. So when I used to wake up in the morning, and this is where it stems from, I think, I had the choice to go to school or not. So I think it starts with the moment we're fucking born. We're in the matrix, as what fucking Andrew Tate would say. Or a lot of people, you know, I think we're just sold into the system as humans. You know, we're looked as peasants, is one way of putting it, robots. And I feel that, and you wanted it real, man, like I honestly feel that fucking we are programmed a particular way to serve a higher, if you want to call it families or, you know, corporations or, you know, big farmers, I don't know. And so I think I was lucky enough that, you know, I had the choice really young. I didn't go to school, fuck all, man. So I felt like I wasn't really programmed. And then, you know, I've gone into business and I haven't really given a fuck, and I haven't really thought about what other people think so much when I was younger. So it gave me the ability to be able to just go and do things. I wasn't worried about what people were thinking about me. As I get older, though, I don't know if you guys can relate to this as well, but maybe as we get older, we do, you know, we're obviously soaking more in, taking more in. And what I'm finding is, and I've ran my own business, I've never worked for anyone, but I lost all my business a couple of years back, and then I've gone and worked for another company. I really don't know where to start with this because it's such a big topic.
Cool, I've got heaps of questions. So.
Yeah. So, well, you know, and then working for somebody else for almost a year, I learnt a lot in doing that. But I'm just like, I used to just look around the office and going, how the fuck are you guys accepting the fact that you sit here in this fucking office, like it's going to be 80% of your life by the time you die. And there's and I'm not judging anyone that does that. I get it, man. Like, because that's considered as like you're doing the right thing, and then you go and get a mortgage and you have a kids and you get married, and fucking before you know it, you're dead, and you're asking yourself, what did I just do with my life, man? And you just followed suit with what everyone else is doing, you know? That's it in a nutshell, I guess. And I just want to talk more and more about it because it seems to be that, like, I'm passionate about this podcast. I'm passionate about the starting line and the charity that I'm doing that's going to help hundreds of thousands of people. And I feel like I got made redundant from that job late last year, just before Christmas, which and then this spiritual journey that I'm on, I keep going, it's happening for a reason. Okay, so and with doing plant-based medicine or breath work or meditations, it's very, very fucking clear. Sound healing, it's very, very clear. The universe has shown me you're going to be a warrior at the front line and fucking leading, you're on the right path. So to me, it's clear. But the more I'm going down this path, the more I feel like I'm just getting sucked into this mainstream vortex or something, and it's like, and things are popping up all the time that it's sort of just fucking pulling you, man. If it's as little as like your rent, your food. Okay. Last night, man, I got pulled over with my daughter in the car, and my car got impounded last night, and I was left fucking walking down Tonkin Highway with my 14-year-old daughter with her pajamas on. Whoa. Because my car had been impounded, I knew nothing about, and I'd been on the transport department for months because I've got something else going on, trying to consolidate all my fines and shit that I've got. And I've said, is there anything else that I've got? And they never mentioned anything about my registration of my car. All my mail goes to the one place, and I get all my mail. And I haven't had anything in the mail. But then all of a sudden, this cop has pulled me over. He's taken my plates off. And I've said, man, I've got my daughter here. We're on the middle of Tonkin Highway. I've clearly not doing anything wrong. I don't drink, so I didn't blow any numbers. I'm not drinking driving. I'm not giving you any cheek. And I said, mate, surely I can just go and pull over, up there and at least fucking sort this out. No, left it right there in the middle of Tonkin Highway on an intersection. And then I'm thinking, I'm fucked off. If my daughter wasn't there, I was ready to punch this fucking copper in the head because I'm just like, you're a fucking asshole, man. And, but I'm just doing my job. I can't let you fucking go, And again, it's just all these rules. And this is only one little bit of the whole bigger topic of this, but I'm hoping I'm painting a bit of a picture here. And then I've gone up to McDonald's with my daughter. We finally walked there. And again, she was in her fucking pajamas, as bullshit as it is. And then so I'm left thinking, well, there's a lesson in this, Dave, your spiritual journey, And then I'm thinking, yeah, all right, there is a lesson in it, and I have had a lesson in it. I woke up this morning extremely fucked off, screaming at the universe, and my biggest thing is like, right, I'm doing all this good. I'm trying to do this podcast. I've got all this gear here. I could sell it up and go and start a business that is actually more capable of making money at the moment. I have no idea where this is going, but I feel like I'm trying to push in areas to help the bigger picture of things with mental health and whatnot. And then I'm thinking, well, if the universe can go out of its way to make a copper pull me over on Tonkin Highway, it's got that much power to teach me a lesson, and there is lessons in it, I do. Why isn't the universe doing a spectacular fucking event, just like the one I experienced on the freeway, but in a positive way of making something like this monetize? It takes the stress off you or something, or I don't know. So, man, I've just spent the whole day thinking, okay, what's going on? But, and like I said to you when you rocked up, the morning started off shit. Anyone that rang me, I just started abusing and venting to and fuck. Yeah. And then I, done a bit of breath work, done a meditation, actually saged the whole house because, I'm learning about all that sort of stuff. And was it the other wood one that brings the good energy in?
Palo Santo.
Is it? Yeah. Then done a wicked, powerful, and I'm reading this manifestation book at the moment, and it was telling me how to bring all that in. So it was beautiful what I've gone through today, and it still is now. But, man, I can't help but keep feeling this pull of, like, freedom, man. Yeah, freedom's what comes to mind as well, and I'm noticing it with everyone.
Do you think that this like oppressive force of society, which I feel like is basically what you're getting at, right? Like, there's structures, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, the government, the police force, our medical systems, they're all overarching structures that force us down certain pathways. But they're also structures of order, and they create safety and security in our society. Like, if we didn't have those structures and you just let things go to anarchy, or if we didn't have the specific structures, for example, we have in the West, you just have to look at like Venezuela or even, like what's happening in Ecuador right now. I don't know. Have you ever paid any attention to what's happening in Ecuador? No. Well, their systems are like falling apart into corruption. The cartels are taking over Ecuador.
Yeah, okay.
And
but aren't we, you could argue the fact that we're already taken over.
Well, yeah, this is where it's like such a fascinating conversation because I feel like I know what you're getting at, and I like if I was to try to summarize, I'm curious to know if I summarize this, whether you'd agree with it. I feel like since COVID, basically, there's been like a huge blow in the psyche of a lot of people that about trust in the system, and I think for a lot of people, COVID was like a peek behind the curtain and a recognition of like how quickly our freedoms can be taken away, how even maybe illusory our current freedoms are, like that we just have an illusion of freedom, and really the powers that be have far more control over us than maybe we thought they did. And so that's like a tough pill to swallow and something that's difficult to contend with. And I tend to agree with that perspective as well, but like with mitigating ideas as well. Like I don't feel like, so I don't feel like the alternatives are obvious, you know, like we live in pretty good lives. Like we're not in danger. Crime bosses aren't fucking taking the streets over. We have food. We have we can have this conversation and not worry about the police busting the door down to fucking get us for this. Like, so we have like not complete freedom of speech, but we have a relative amount of like a freedom of speech compared to other nations. So yeah, it's like it's an interesting one. I guess what I started there that I didn't finish was asking you, like, do you think that there is like a conspiratorial cabal to shut us down, or do you think that this is just the way things have panned out?
Well, I didn't get vaccinated. I didn't get my kids vaccinated.
But even early on, you didn't get them vaccinated? So you didn't get them vaccinated as babies?
I'm like, fuck, man, you're going to have to ask the mum that. Yeah. But we were both very, even down to Panadol and things like that. No real reason, just trusting in the makeup of who we are as humans. I know I've got a really good immune system. I know I keep myself relatively healthy. So I made the choice, if we're talking about the COVID vaccines and stuff, there was a part of me that I wanted to choose for myself and choose for my children. Now, you talk about the cartel. What would the cartel do if you're not doing something that they tell you to do, like the government? If they don't kill you, they're certainly going to shut you down. They're going to stop you. Like, I couldn't go to the gym. My kids couldn't go to school. I couldn't go into a workplace. Everyone says I had to do it because of my work. I get that, but so did I. I couldn't go to the gym, and even if I didn't wear a mask in a fucking shopping centre, I was made out like I was a fucking alien, like I just stepped out of a fucking UFO ship. And I mean, there's no apologise for that. If anything, they're still pushing the control over us.
Yeah.
And so I don't think there is a limit to their agenda. I think they've only just begun.
It's so fucking fascinating. It's like that one is so fascinating. Like we're gonna open up a can of worms.
Yeah.
But I'm in for it. I think this discussion needs to be had more. Like I'm surprised how much we've forgotten, because I was appalled. I was disgusted during COVID. Like,
are you vaccinated?
I am, but I very much against my will. Like extremely against my will. Like it was one of the most invasive moments I've ever had in my life. Yeah. Like when that nurse jabbed me, I remember it vividly, because it was like, I don't want you to do this. Like, and I was just, it felt like I just was at the, I had a mortgage, I had a full-time job that I'd like, and at that moment, like I'm a teacher, so I had a job in the government, good job, like had worked really hard over a long period of time to gain the position that I had. And at that moment in time, there was no guarantee that if I didn't take the vaccine that I'd ever get the job back. So, it turned out that, because there were teachers that held out and they got their jobs back like 6 months later. And, if I had hindsight 2020, I just would have held out. But bro, I wasn't even fucking scared of the vaccine.
So what do we do next time something like this happens? Do we all then stand up and go, no, we're not getting the fucking vaccine? Or
I
are we
can
all
tell
just
you
going
what
to
will happen. Exactly the same thing.
Give us your input, Lukey.
I feel like the exact same thing will happen. There's so much fear within our society to conform to the system, whatever the system is. And we already kind of see it playing out time after time. That similar thing will happen, and everybody just gets scared again and does what they're told.
Well, that's it. I mean, like you said, you know, you had a mortgage, you're in a job. You know, some people have got children. I don't know if you said you had children or not, but like, yeah. So you're in this vortex, or you're in this matrix, or you're in this whatever we call it, man. The government's got you there by the fucking gonads, man. So what do? They go and bump up fucking interest rates. Now they've even got you even more. You've got to work even harder. You can't even look up for a fucking bit of fresh air right now because you're stuck in your fucking mortgage, you're stuck in your job, you're stuck in... Then they go and bump up fucking food. So they're making people more and more scared.
It's all perfect. Yeah. I feel like it's all perfect. It's igniting passion in people like you to stand up to it, to choose something different than what is the norm of society. And I think the more that happens, the better the world gets a little bit. And there is always an alternative. It's never concrete. Like, yes, we are under these laws, but they're not natural laws. They're not universal laws. Those are the real laws that if we did step out of the system, this false, illusory system, we would have to revert back to nature. And when we revert back to nature and live within the cycles and the laws of nature, then things like that is the alternative. I don't know what that looks like, but it looks very different to what we're living in right now.
Well, from the conversation before, I think mushrooms is an alternative.
Yeah, like...
I don't know.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I'm... Like, to be slightly challenging, you know, as much as I think there are problems, I don't think that I don't feel like, you know, there's this classic use of the word they.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing this to us. You know, they raise the interest rates. They got the wood on us. And I really understand how we fall into thinking that, because it really feels that way at times, particularly if they're rubbing against the grain of what we want, you know, our autonomy, our sense of freedom. So that's like tough. But I don't know if they exists. That's the part that I think is really difficult to pass out.
What I see is like perspective. And I'm wondering if you think that perspective serves to think of like being oppressed.
So adopting the viewpoint that you're being oppressed by like a force above you. Yeah, I think that's where I get like a little bit. It's a risky stance to take, right? Because in some ways it takes away our own autonomy and power. Because it's like, oh, there's this cabal like the Illuminati or whatever that wants to oppress us, that wants to hurt us, and that is actively working towards our downfall. Whereas I'm less inclined to think that way, partly out of self-preservation, so I don't go nuts from just questioning everything right down to its core, but also like because there are rational underpinnings to me thinking that way. Like power structures struggle to organise themselves. You know, like there's a lot of chaos in government departments and in corporations, and it seems to me like the real motivating or dominant force is incentive. So like governments have incentive to keep power, corporations have incentive to make lots of money, and those incentives can become really perverse and then cause perverse action. And then when you like look back on it, you're like, this looks like a fucking designed conspiracy to oppress us. But in fact, it's just like a series of bad incentives that are built up over time.
I just reckon our government's puppets.
Puppets
like
to what?
Well, to the bigger farmers, to
I would agree. I think in some aspect that does exist, but on a whole, from where I see things, I just think that it must be so hard to run a country, and there's probably just lots of incompetency and backhanded deals. But there's also lots of good too. I think there's a lot of people that are trying to do good. I can't even conceive or comprehend what it would be like to try and run a structure of millions of people. And now that we see this globalization as well, It's fascinating, and I don't know if I'll ever know, and I don't know if it will. It will serve.
I don't think any
Suicide.
of us will.
So
No,
there's
I agree.
seven men that die through suicide every day
Yep.
Yeah.
in Australia.
And far more that attempt it.
And so that's right. And that's just your men and tempted. Okay, so that's a shitload more than COVID that died of COVID, yeah? Can
Yep.
we all agree on that?
Yeah.
So why aren't we having a pandemic?
True.
Because there's no fucking agenda for it, man. I mean, our government is like if that was going to win them on the voting polls, then perhaps maybe they would push it. Or if there was a higher, like the elite pushing it because they're going to make a shitload of money out of it, then it would have been pushed.
Yeah.
And if we are living in this great world, well, then why aren't we giving the same sort of funding to things like suicide? And, why aren't we cutting out alcohol, man?
Yeah.
Like, why is that on every street corner? And why is there a pharmacy on every fucking street corner? They haven't banned cigarettes, but they'll ban vapes. I don't know, man. The more I look into it, I just think there's someone making fucking shit tons of money out of this, and that's the...
Well, it's funny, like, hearing you talk, because I feel like I'm going through a similar period where I'm being very cynical of everything. Even the people closest to me, I'm seeing like the darker aspects of who they are. And I think it's really important to go through that phase, but I don't think it will serve me going forward. You said you've got kids, and I have a little boy on the way, and I think when I think of being cynical, I think of my father, and that didn't serve me at all. And so I hope that there is this like integration of like optimism and cynicism and realism and hope for something better.
I definitely think there's awakening happening, man.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I've seen that in all areas.
And I think the way you described your upbringing as well is like your veil's always been off. You know what I mean? You haven't been like conditioned in some aspect, like you say, and so you've been able to see things maybe in more of a real lens. And I certainly feel like I have that as well. And I think there can be a lot of aspects to how you go about living your life and what you view that just don't make sense. And I certainly feel that myself. And I feel like I'm stumbling towards something, a certain type of freedom that I think exists, and that what I can see through that can be financial, but also I think a freedom that exists within my own mind and a perspective as well. The natural world is like, I believe in natural laws as well, and if you wanted to get esoteric, like universal laws, but nature's also savage and brutal. There's always going to be like struggle as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's like how we frame that struggle. It's such a huge, complex and nuanced
man. It's
topic.
so
Like
nuanced,
it's so important to be like, there's fucking men that are dying. Like,
Yeah.
why is there not been attention here, or how can we sort this out? But then to adopt a view of like everything's fucked, I don't think serves us either. Not to say that that's your view.
No,
but
that's
like,
definitely not my view. No, because everything's fucking beautiful too, man.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's the yin and the yang, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So and that's what you got to accept. I guess my point of it was sort of, I guess, the freedom to really be who we want to be. It seems like to be that we're forced to live a particular path, like to be forced on a particular path. And if we sort of step outside that a little bit, we're soon reminded that no.
Well, there's pressure, right?
Yeah.
It's fascinating hearing you talk, because I'm like, even though I feel that forced, or that what I want to say pressure, I'm like, we're actually not forced. Kind of what you were alluding to before, and like you're like, we have our own. Well, this is a different like our own free will, in some aspect, to choose how we want to live our life, but certain paths are much more uncomfortable than others, and not necessarily accepted by our greater community.
I would say it just depends at which lens you are looking through.
Yeah.
And if you zoom all the way out and let's sit on the moon for a moment and look down at Earth, there is a planet or a realm or whatever you want to call it, where there are multiple levels of evolved souls having an incarnation and an experience here at multiple levels of evolution. But we all seem to be here having an experience at the same time. We have different pockets of collectives that are going through similar things. right now we are experiencing a choice, and we're experiencing a waking up from being born into a conditioned state. Once we realize and see the world for what it is, we then get to choose to return back to nature and to align all of our choices and all of our actions towards it and towards natural law, and to be in the world but not of it. So you can still allow and watch the beauty and the unfolding of every single person's experience here. And you can hold compassion for everybody that's going through a particular experience. But then you are also focused on yourself aligning to whatever it is that's alive for you in your body. And if that's stepping away from the system and doing things that you know are aligned, it's difficult, man, because we're in a world that, as you say, everything is designed to draw you back in, but we still have a choice. And it gets harder the further we try to walk back. The magnetism of the pull, it gets stronger, but it grows the will in our hearts to align back to our true nature. And we are the only species on this planet that have separated themselves from nature. And everything that we've ever created is an imitation of a system or a technology that is already alive in nature. We've just tried to recreate it, thinking that we can do a better job than the architect itself. And as we've moved further away from that essence, we've run into more troubles, but it's all perfect because, again, we're here to experience duality and free will to an extent.
Do you think we're meant to be on this journey as the human race?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we're all having different journeys as a collective. And I only speak from even experiencing regression, of having a past life regression of, I feel like I've lived many different lives and different experiences at different levels of suffering, pain, joy, whatever that may be. And that ultimately we're just here because we're a little thread in a larger tapestry of universal love. But the only way we can choose love is that the opposite needs to exist so that we can actually choose it.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. And I sort of think that's a part of growth. And as you grow, even if you look at it into business, the more you grow or the more you awaken, the more challenging it gets, the more tension you feel.
Well, the frustration comes is because we're operating within this system. And if we could operate outside of the system and be free, like truly free, and it was easy to do so, then we would. But we have to play the game.
Do you think it wouldn't be fun then? And I don't mean that in like a sadistic way, but like if there's some sort of rigid guideline, and you can like jump outside of the guidelines and stuff. You're kind of like, it's the game of life.
But there is a guideline, but it's very subtle in nature. We are going against not physical, but we're going against laws, like hard laws. Whereas if I'm put in a collective, the laws are within. If I kill somebody, a part of me knows that that's wrong. And that's just where our law came in. And it's just there's somebody implementing a consequence for that. Whereas previously, it was a part of the whole. There would be a consequence, and that consequence is what we would call karma. So there is always a consequence to every single action. It's just that we have taken karma on ourselves to put people away for doing wrong in the world, rather than allowing the natural law to take care of it.
This is a fascinating conversation, like moral, like where our moral complex came from, and you can maybe adopt the idea that it's come from a higher power or nature itself, but then also there's the like evolutionary standpoint of we developed it to thrive as humans.
Yeah. And I believe even animals kill other animals for survival. And I think we have had to do the same. We've done what we needed to do to survive. But as soon as you get to an evolutionary state where that is no longer necessary, there is something in us that is like, we no longer need to do that. So we can move with the times of evolution.
I just think the rules are getting fucking ridiculous as well. I mean, that copper couldn't let me go couldn't allow me drive any further off that fucking road.
Yeah, that sucks.
Even the over safety, over my daughter being in her fucking pajamas, man, at 8:30 at night.
Do you think
It's
your
like-
frustration would be different if he was like more forgiving in that scenario?
Oh, mate, if he'd have just fucking said, look, we're on the side of the road here. You've got your daughter in the car. You haven't been drinking. You're cooperating. Like, let's try and just, work to an agreement or a solution here that we're both happy with, man. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you would have just gone away. Yeah, no, man, I feel pretty good about the fucking law. But instead, I was just left like, I'm not allowed to fucking let you go any further from here.
Do you think, for lack of a better word, him being a cunt has like fueled your frustration for many other aspects of life?
Yeah, I've my experiences with cops growing up
Yeah.
has been pretty shit house, and a lot of it is being south, and I've probably inflicted a lot of that on myself with police officers, especially when I was younger. I was a bit of a shitbag, but I've also, I've probably had more encounters with cops that are just complete fucking assholes, to be honest. From the moment they walk up to the window.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, how do you? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess it reminds. I feel like at this point in my life, there's a lot going on, and I tend to catastrophize, and so it's just like one thing goes wrong, and then it's like, well, what about all the other bad things going? And I just think of every bad thing going on, and it can just take one like unfortunate event from my perspective to just really like propel me into this like over catastrophizing everything.
I was I'm pretty aware of that though. Like I went into like him coming up to the window, in fact, this is how it started. He followed me for 4 Ks down Great Eastern Highway, and he'd been following me, and I saw it. Like, so he's waiting for me to slip up, and there's 3 lanes, and I was in the right lane, and this lane was getting closed through. I was in the middle lane, and this right lane was getting closed through roadworks that was coming up. And he was sort of sitting there right next to me like this. So I just zoomed up like that for him to come in because it was coming to a dead end for him. And that was me going 10K over the limit more than what it was. So that's when the lights went on. So he'd followed me for 4 Ks at least. And it was that little... So I was actually using my common sense to just go, hey, I'll speed up a little bit so you can just duck in behind me, thinking it was the right thing. That's when the lights went on. Doing above the speed limit, man. So, and even then, he's pulled me over, and so straight away, I've just known he's waiting for the opportunity, and I was calm. I had my daughter in the car, so I was calm, and I did ask him, man, can we just pull off to like? I even showed him on the maps, man. This is where I'm going. Can you just follow me to here, and we can resolve this? And it was just like, nah, bang, So. Yeah. You start losing your shit, and to the point when we're standing outside the car and I go, mate, you could be doing a lot better things than allowing me and my fucking daughter at 8:30 at night walking down the fucking freeway.
Yeah, it's shitty. There's a good metaphor in this, which is like that cop. First of all, that cop might just be a douchebag. Like it kind of sounds like he was. So that does lack common sense. But if to defend his position potentially, he's probably got some supervisor above him. Who like if he finds out like
that's right
that he let you do that, then he's in the shit, and that supervisor has some supervisor above him who's putting pressure on him, and so everyone's just sort of like, bro, I'm a fucking teacher, and I find myself doing shit in class. I want to leave teaching, like badly,
like the curriculum,
it's terrible, but this is a part of the reason why, like. The system, when you're in a system like a school, and a school's like a little microcosm of society, right? And I'm the fucking cop at school, I'm the police officer, right? So
the cool one.
Well, sometimes,
not according to who I've spoken to, the kids.
Yeah, that's it. No, sometimes I'm lovely, and I know that I'm like nailing my role, and I relate to the kids on a personal level. Have good banter, and I sense that like, me being real and being the person that I am in this role is really good because I'm breaking the mold of your usual teacher. But stress, I'm dealing with 5 lots of 30 kids 5 days a week. So you're looking at 150 different kids every day with a variety of different needs.
What age group, man?
High school.
High school. Okay, yeah.
And those kids don't want to be there, and they don't want to be learning the things that I'm trying to teach them. And sometimes it doesn't matter what you do, they don't want to be there. So you got a lot of resistance as well.
So just on that note, though, so you're teaching a bunch of kids that are there, that are forced there. So what are you teaching them? Like to
Nothing.
me, no, that's right.
Nothing.
You're just
Absolutely
teaching
nothing.
them, you're teaching them how to
Teaching
be
them
workers
how
and
to
to fit
hate
in.
life.
Yeah,
That's what it is, and that's why it gets crushing. Like because I know that I'm not under any illusion, and I'm also like, this is fucked. You're 14 or 15, you're jacked up on testosterone, like you're ready to fucking go, and you've got some cunt with a man bun at the front of the room telling you like, no, just act, like I'm a drama teacher, so I'm like, just get into your emotional body, and no, I'm not doing that in front of my mates, like it's not happening, and that's like, so for me, I'm in this bind where I'm like, fair enough, but also I have a job, like where I'm, and even if I do just go, okay, you can do nothing, cool, just sit out. You leave a 14-year-old kid to do nothing for half an hour, he's going to destroy shit. So, and that's exactly what happens. So now it's like, I've got to engage you. And so there's this tension where I'm like, I've got pressure from the institution to make sure nothing bad happens here. And I have an internal responsibility to keep everyone safe and to give the people who want an opportunity to learn, right? So there's all these factors going on. And this kid has every right to be pissed off. His situation sucks. I have every right to be pissed off because my situation sucks. And none of us can really do anything about it because this is like overarching invisible force forcing us into this situation, right? And the police officer's in a similar boat.
Yeah.
So, the perspective maybe that we can take there is like just compassion towards this dude. Because who knows? He might have just left a scene where two crackheads were beating up some woman and he's just like had to separate them. The crackheads have been spitting on him, calling him a cunt, yada, yada, yada. He's down on life and his cup is empty, and that's happening. Dude, man, police officers are heroes. They're fucking heroes. Like they are.
What they go through is crazy.
What they go through is crazy, and they don't get paid enough. And they're running out of police officers. We have a police shortage at the moment for a reason. And without them, imagine life without them. You know who would be running the show? Fucking bikies. That's who would be running the show. Like the biggest, baddest alpha males out there is who would be running the show. Like so, it's. That guy sounds like a dick. He put you in a shitty situation. And at the same time, it's like I can have compassion for him and be like, man, his situation's probably shit as well,
I feel like what you're getting at is like this just internal angst of like, why is the world this way?
Because all I'm thinking with schooling systems, you're breeding workers. You're designed to be there at 9 o'clock with your packed lunch. We tell you when you can have a break. We tell you when you can leave. We tell you what you do. And if you don't sit on the mat for fucking 8 hours straight, you got ADHD, you got to be pills, so then we suppress you. Yeah. Fucking out the door you go. And I'm being very blunt here, and I don't want to sound sinister about it, but like it's the fuck it.
It's the truth.
It's the truth, man.
Yeah. It's the truth, but also the fact that even the children are saying fuck this. Whereas back there was none of that. There was discipline and there was order. And if kids said, I'm not doing that, they would get the shit beaten out of them. Whereas these days, that doesn't happen. It's not allowed to happen, which is a good thing because they're not being taught the system program. Really. They are rejecting it just as we are rejecting the system as adults.
But that comes down to, I done a post today. Yeah. And that's, our children are a makeup of what they see, what they hear, and what we teach them.
Yeah. But so were we. And we woke up.
Yeah.
And this is the whole thing is like, yes, that's why they say in the Bible we're born into sin. Because we're born into this separation. We're born into the system. But there is a journey throughout life where we have multiple opportunities to have this reality illuminated to us, to see it for what it really is, an inversion of the divine will.
So, Luke, I find it sometimes challenging when I hear like things framed the way you're framing them.
Yeah.
In that I don't understand exactly. Okay, so we've woken up from maybe the naive belief that the world is good, or that things are that things have to be this way, or that like what we were told when we were young was real, and then there's this awakening that's occurring.
Yeah.
To you, what's the end state there? Like, what does the awakening lead to? If you have even an idea or a form of thought around that, that's kind of like what I'm curious about.
I feel like it just leads to freedom to life eventually.
Freedom from
being asleep. The being asleep itself is, and I say asleep, so through evolution, there are some human beings that don't relate to themselves having an ego or having a witness of life. They are completely within the drama of life, seeing themselves as part of the drama, as part of being a whole, and that the narrative in their head is completely who they are as a body, as a mind. And there's been some human beings that have, through meditation or through whatever practices, come to the realization that actually they're not that, and that there's something greater. And that's just the first wake up of, I am not the ego. But there's a lot of people still operating as that. And I was until the age of 27. And it was only through plant medicine that I was like, what is this? Somebody burst this bubble, and I was kind of out of it. And it was traumatic. But it was the first step towards illuminating the truth.
So I'd say I've had that awakening.
Yeah.
Well, I know I've had that awakening.
Yeah.
And there was a long period of time where I was obsessed with that awakening. Like I would be meditating for 3-4 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I felt like I wanted to nearly drop out of society.
Yeah.
You know, like, but
I've been there too.
Yeah. And because it was like, it's all an illusion. And, and it's mind created, and that that what matters is the internal world, which is true to an extent.
Yeah.
Because, but then what happened is I found like, but I actually am a human.
Yeah.
And I actually have an ego.
Yeah.
And I actually am a part of this world.
Absolutely.
I've heard it put, I think it's Sadhguru, but it's a nice one from Sadhguru. I like this one. It's
I
like,
love
becoming enlightened is like, you're walking around with a rucksack, you know, and you're walking around with it, and then when you become enlightened, you drop the rucksack.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and you pick it back up and put it back on, knowing that you're carrying the rucksack around, whereas before you didn't realize you were carrying the rucksack.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like what the ego is. The ego is the rucksack.
Yeah.
And then you awaken. You're like, whoa, all that exists is this moment.
Yeah.
That's all that there is.
Beautiful,
and there's great relief in that, and expansion and beauty. But then there's also like a difficult disassociation that comes along with that, and a loss of identity, like an instability in identity.
Yep.
And then it's like near like the challenge is to reform one's identity, but yourself. Like you take a conscious role in the reformation of your identity and your place in society.
Yeah.
Well, that's even like how I grew up, and then realizing, fuck, you know, like you start, because you learn this new identity, or like you move, like even just in a relationship. Fuck, so that's what love feels like, you know, or you know. And then I got scared of being in a relationship or having a family. I'd push it away because I didn't know what it felt like. But it's this new, and when it's awakening, even like a spiritual awakening, it's like this whole new world. It's actually quite scary. And then like with the identity, even with things like drinking, for instance, you know, I've drunk. All my family are all heavy drinkers, and I've grown up seeing it, and I've adopted it myself, especially after finding my mum dead through suicide at the age of 14. You know, but I drank like, and suppressing it. I never really knew the relationship I had with her, but it was my medicine the whole time. But once you realise and stop drinking, and I'm going through this now, I actually went like 6 months last year, and I'm now doing all of this year as well. But I'm realising how many emotions I have and my feelings, and I'm realising how much it's actually fucking robbed me of my life, and even experiences that we all do as males. When you're nervous about things like sex, so you go out fucking drinking with this girl and you do such a fucking beautiful thing, under the influence of alcohol. And that's just one scenario.
Bro.
And that awakening of alcohol in its own thing is like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Man, I honestly believe this was the way. I believe, like, you know, I went to Wildlands Festival last weekend, and it was my first festival ever. It was like Big Day Out. And my first festival ever sober. And I was fucking anxious. I'd do breath work before I went into it and everything, man. But I was just like, nah, fuck this, I'm doing it. And yeah, man. So it's
How was it?
Good. Yeah.
Did you sink into it?
I did, man. I had a bit of MD.
That's a good one, boy.
Yeah.
Even
And, hey,
MD sober is a whole nother experience.
Just-
like without, I know that sounds like
So
science
that-
fiction, but MD
I know
without
what you mean,
alcohol
yeah.
is a pretty.
And
pure
on that
experience.
note, man, so, and then I thought, fuck, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then I went through this whole thing of like, well, fuck, you know, is MD right and drugs is right? And your outlook on MD, man, like, fuck, you know, like, is it wrong, right? And I had this battle, and I thought, fuck it. If I'm doing it, MD's not ruining my life. And if I'm taking a little bit to enhance the music and get in the vibe of a fucking music and, you know, the vibrations of fucking what's happening around me, so be it. As long as you know you're waking up in the morning, you still conduct your day as normal, or you're prepared for it, and, you know, you're not abusing it, and you're having a fucking... I think the main important thing is that you're having a good time on it. My addiction to alcohol and cocaine, it got to the point where I'm just taking it for the fucking sake of it to keep, to like as medicine.
I think
you know?
as we spoke, I think we spoke about this before. Anything that's done with the intention of contraction or cutting off or escapism is it's going to leave a negative imprint in the body. But if we're doing it to connect, or we're doing it for a positive intention, it has a completely different effect. Even with alcohol, if for some reason you choose to drink alcohol because you are wanting to explore connection deeper or whatever, it's, as long as it's not a running away from a fear or closing off,
That's
or
it, man.
using it as courage to do something. It can, like, in alcohol in and of itself is neither good nor bad. It's just a thing. It's a tool, and we can use any tool for expansion or contraction.
I also, and I took that into account as well, I thought, well, if I'm taking MD to cover up my, I guess, my insecurities or whatever it has been at a festival, so I waited, you know, because I wanted to actually soak up this nerve, or whatever was going on, man, all this action and that, and not being under the influence of anything.
Yeah.
So I did wait to really soak in, because this is the other thing. Now that I'm not drinking, it's like I want to experience, I'm experiencing a new life.
Yeah.
Even just social, man, and things like going out for dinner, or, you know, like, fuck, I'm having a bit of a rough day, you know, it would be good to have a fucking pint just to take the edge off it. And just realising, nah, man, I'm now experiencing, like, developing new strategies around those little things that were programmed.
What it sounds like, and we're talking about awakening, is like you're all being, all feeling, all seeing. And I think as humans, like, we feel and see, like, well, we feel such deep emotion in both positive or negative. Emotion can just be emotion. And I feel maybe where we've lost track in some aspect of society is like we're just hitting the numb button all the time through alcohol. And I see it in myself a lot, and we were talking about this just before in the car. Like, for me, it's any form of dopamine. It's like YouTube, food, like whatever, cheap dopamine, or casual sex, you know. And now that I'm in a committed relationship and I have a son on the way, these things that I've done for like a decade or longer, like, I can't, like, if I want to be the man that I want to be, like, they're not there anymore. So like, I don't have these crutches that I'm just like falling, and I'm feeling and I'm seeing all these aspects of me that I've numbed for years and years and years. And it's super uncomfortable, but I think it's also really beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and you're questioning constantly,
All
fucking
the
why
time.
it's wrong, what's this, you know, like,
Yeah.
again, just taking back to the MD situation. Okay, I was battling with it all day. I was down at City Beach by myself, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm consumed by these thoughts because it's not right or wrong. But this brings me on to what I experience is like, I mean, there's a lot of great things out there that we're all doing, but the men's groups, man, you know, I find by having these open conversations with other males and, you know, really, really helps, man, you know, and, you know, like that men's group that we were out of Cam's.
Yep.
I sort of shared this on another podcast of that one, but, you know, I just walked into that men's group not really knowing what the fuck was going on. Cam just said, come down, I'm holding a men's group tonight. And I was like, yeah, righto, sweet. And I've walked into it and, you know, before we know it, we're in a circle and we're all talking about our fucking, like, you know, the things that are going on in our life. And, you know, and I was sort of like at the end of the circle and I've heard everyone's story and there was some cries and people really opening up to it. But man, it come around to me and I was just like, holy fuck, I can actually resonate with each and every one of yous. And even though I didn't say anything and no one was there trying to work out anyone's problems, we're just hearing another guy one by one just share his story. And there's so much learning in that, man, and healing, I think, you know. Yeah. And so with things of like having a child for the first time and fuck, there's 101 million things going on in your head, especially for your first time, man.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. And I think what you're alluding to is just like having that support network with men. That challenge you, but also support you as well. And I think it's lost in at least the Western world, from what I can see.
Well, my connection with that before doing this sort of stuff was down the pub. Yeah. Fucking going halves in a trifecta, or fucking, you know, who's going to win the Melbourne Cup, and you know, and yeah, a few little emotional things might come out every now and then, but really it was just surface level chit chat, man. But that was our way of connecting. It was my way of connecting.
Well, that's all you knew, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was out partying, doing heaps of drugs.
Yeah.
And it was just surface level chat the whole time. And I feel like now looking back from the journey that I've gone on, all I was really craving was just like deep connection with other humans and with other men as well.
I feel like it's what we're all craving.
Yeah.
You know, like it's so... See, my journey's actually been really different to yours and yours. I grew up in a really healthy home and with a really healthy dad who was there for me, present, just a loving man, like masculine, like a disciplined guy, had a clear structure in his mind, but super compassionate and emotionally available and expressive as well. And, you know, I knew it was good. Like I was always pretty, you know. Was
his father like that as well?
No.
No, okay. No, that could be another topic.
His dad was all right.
Yeah.
His dad wasn't a bad dude by any stretch. He was a bit absent, his dad. He was like, he worked, he was a travelling man. And he just worked away a lot and he was a bit neglectful. My dad left his house when he was 18. But he became a Christian and like really was profoundly moved by his like conversion to faith, and met my mum in the church, and I grew up in the church. And I have a lot of criticisms of churches and religious institutions, particularly dogmatic religious institutions, but there is a lot of good that comes from them as well. And they, you know, it's funny, the older I get, the more I see the wisdom of the Bible, and I understand more and more like, this shit makes sense. Like, it at first glance, it can seem like oppressive or dogmatic or over the top or like a bit confusing, but then there's like heaps of stuff where I'm like, fuck, man, society kind of needs these structures, you know, we really struggle without them. Anyway, that's tangential. Like, to my father, he I think that had a real positive influence on him, but I don't understand how he got the wisdom he got. I really don't get it. Like, it seems God-given in some way. And so as I got older, my mates would come around and they loved my dad. All of my friends loved my dad. And I realized more and more like, fuck, I was blessed. I was really blessed here. And then I became like an extension of him in some sense to other mates. And so I would be like the sole outlet for heaps of dudes. Like, and I was just the best friend and like the guy they could open up to, the person they could go talk to. And I sort of became a bit reflective on that. Like, why is that? What's going on here? Like, and every conversation I'd have with new people I'd meet over time, they'd be like, I've never ever said that to another man. I've never opened up that way to another man. And that's what got me interested in doing this work. I was like, fuck, that's a problem. Like, why? Because every time, to me, it was simple, natural. Like, let's talk about what's going on in our lives. Like, you can be as real and honest here as you want. You can get emotional if need be, but mainly like we can explore the depths of you know. But what really shocked me was the rarity of that, like how that wasn't seemingly accessible to the average dude. And then the profound, like, emotional resonance in those moments. Yeah. Like, it was crazy how moved these guys were for a conversation that to me felt nearly stock. Like, yep, okay. And then I started to go, well, what's going on? Why? You know, and I still don't have like a really clear answer to that question, but it motivates what Ryan and I are doing. Like, without knowing why maybe exactly men are geared that way and have developed relationships that kind of often sit at a surface level.
Well, isn't that awakening in itself, though? We all come from different homes. I mean, you thought everyone was like that. Everyone had a dad like mine. You know, I thought everyone come from an upbringing I had. You know, and
I craved that.
Eh?
I craved that.
So
I would be the person at your place because I just wanted to be at a table with a family.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, that's what my house was, man. And
Yeah.
my dad opened up the doors to so many people. And yeah, so just to finish off what I was sort of where I was going there, like, it feels like what I want to do, but I know Ryan and I share this mission. You know, we do the way we met, which would be interesting to go into as well.
Yeah, man, I want to know about this mission.
Yeah, it's been such a serendipitous mission. Like, it just has had such an air of like divine spoken over it, you know. And I'm reluctant to use words like that, but it really has. It's felt like really ordained in a way.
What is it, man? Fill us in.
Well, okay, yeah. So linking in, like, the mission has been to give men space to connect with each other like that, like in deep, real ways.
What's it called? What's the mission called?
What's it called?
Yeah, you're talking about men's circles that you're holding?
Yeah, well, the mission, I guess, like the overarching banner is men's work.
Yeah.
You know, that really is the overarching banner. Yeah. The group that we run, which Ryan started, and you know, full credit to Ryan, has ownership of it, and it's really beautiful, is Chilly Willys. You know, which is a silly, light-hearted name, but just going for a dip in the ocean every second Sunday. But the mission's deep. Right, but it's like it's a weird one because it's not like we're doing much complex stuff, you know. Like, it's definitely not a like situation where it's us sitting on the mound being like, fellas, this is how we connect. Yeah. You have to open up your heart and say these things. Yeah. Like, it's nothing like that.
Yeah. So what is it like? Like, if someone was to come along, like, take us through the.
Well, I guess there's different offerings, right? So there's the way that it started was just going down to the beach at sunrise and maybe doing some breath work or some movement, having a bit of a chat, and then jumping in the ocean, and then getting a coffee afterwards. And I guess, like, it was, I think what it all comes down to, maybe what Steph is alluding to, is just like holding space for people and creating a space that is like inclusive, non-judgmental, and where you feel supported but also challenged to essentially do better. And it attracts people, I think, that are right there, that want that. Yeah. That came from my own journey of masculinity, and I can tell you a story actually for me, which was like why that happened. I've had a very like troubled relationship with my father, and for a while there, after not seeing him for many, many years, we had a bit of a relationship, and I would have dinner with my father, but I'd bring my best mate along as like a buffer because I felt awkward just like sitting across from the table from him. And anyway, we went out for dinner one night, and we finished dinner, we went outside, And my father smokes cigars, and so does my mate. And they were like, "Do you want a cigar?" And I was like, "Whatever, why not? I don't usually smoke." So I'm smoking this cigar, got nicotine running through my body, and I found us like talking about quote unquote very masculine things like engineering, politics, whatever. But it was foreign to me, and I was like, oh, I kind of enjoy this. Like, and as I was psychoanalyzing the situation in myself and being like, oh, I enjoy this, something just hit me, and it was just like, that's bad, that's wrong. And I was like, what the fuck was that? And it really was like weird. And I was driving home with my friend, and I was like telling him about it. And in that moment, I realized that I'd been rejecting masculinity as a whole. I'd adopted my mother's view of masculinity, and I saw it all as bad because I'd never had any good male role models in my life. And it really just sent me on this journey of like discovering my own masculinity, and connecting more to my nature as a man. And I felt like I was incredibly disconnected from it. And then, from that journey, I guess with Cold Nips, I had some experience in building community and stuff, and I was like, I want to create a men's community around jumping in the ocean, and then it just started propelling really forward quite quickly. And it was actually almost a year ago that it started. And then, along the journey met Steph, and I'd had a lot of really beautiful moments doing retreats myself, and I was like, I want to run a retreat. And I feel like the things lined up, and we managed to run a retreat. And
well, the things lining up is fun.
Yeah.
So I was at the start of the year, I had this feeling of like, I need to follow my heart more. I'm a head-based dude, very logical, always stringing like the next step. And then if something like I had an intuition to do something, I'd be like, no, that doesn't make logical sense. I'm fucking doing this, And there was like different things that occurred where I was like, I need to follow my heart more. And so I had this breathwork course pop up. I'd have a long-standing interest in yoga, breathwork, meditation. So I did the course, got qualified to become a breathwork teacher. Fucking loved it. It was insane and beautiful and wonderful. And then in between, I went to Cold Nips for the first time and went to a cafe afterwards. And I was with my missus at the time, and Ryan was sitting like on a chair somewhere away. I had no idea who he was other than like this giant, mildly intimidating, very handsome guy. I kind of like looked at him and was like, I'm not talking to that motherfucker. And when we were leaving, we ended up sort of like near each other and just gave each other a little nod or whatever. And we ended up talking. Within 5 minutes of that first conversation, we had like said, let's run a men's retreat together. Because the next weekend I was doing a course on how to run retreats. So, and he had just been given a space to run retreats in, but didn't have like a structure of how to run a retreat. So it was like the perfect meeting, and then that was it. We just took off, and then the retreats are just fucking.
So this is where I step in, because I'm always trying to get this message out to people who's going to be listening to this. So you got Cold Nips, Chilly Willys. Are they the same thing?
They started out as the same thing, and essentially they're under the same banner at the moment, but they are different things and separate things.
So if people want to come along, so are you running? So you're running. Is it like weekly or weekend? So I haven't done my research, man. I'm sorry, but I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah.
But
so I'll give you a brief history of Cold Nips. It started about 4.5 years ago with one of my best mates, Gian, and it was just a simple idea of like. I don't know, I was interested in like Wim Hof and like open water swimming, and I was kind of like searching for more, and I went for an early morning swim at sunrise and then got a coffee afterwards, and I was like, this is pretty cool, and started delving into the benefits of like cold water therapy and being out in nature and all that kind of stuff. And then my buddy came over, Gian, he wanted to start a run group. We were swimming, and I was like, let's start a swim group. And then we created an Instagram, and then 16 people came to the first one, and then 10 weeks later, it was like 250, and then it just blew up massive. Yeah. And I guess I always say when I'm doing like sessions or explaining to people, like when you start something, you think you know why you started it. Like there's a lot of naivety and excitement and whatever. And it's only years later you really realize why you're doing that. And I just had a shit quality of life, like a lack of community, not really any strong, genuine relationships. I wasn't spending enough time out in nature. And I had an abundance of comfort, but the comfort that left me like internally restless. Like I needed challenge, I needed discomfort. And I guess a lot of other people were feeling the same thing. And they also wanted to connect in a wholesome way that like wasn't at the bar, you know, where there's people with hidden agendas and stuff. And I'm not putting like a slack on going out and having a drink. Like I enjoy that as well. But like there's just something about getting up in the morning and the space that it provides and everyone coming down, having a coffee, which I actually love about Australia. Like I used to hate on the culture when I was younger, but now that every time I go away, I come back and I'm like, man, I love Australian culture. It's great. Early morning coffee.
And so you also left with your cup filled as well, aren't you?
Yeah,
you know,
bro.
so
Yeah. And then that's been that journey. And then obviously I told you the journey of Chilly Willys, and I guess that's just beginning. Cold Nips runs in like a summer season where every single Wednesday we do a massive dip. Like tomorrow we're going to be at Trig. We're going to do breath work in the morning. It's always free. We started doing like sessions and stuff where we do breath work and ice baths and a few other things that we want to delve into. And I guess the men's work stuff, we dip every fortnight at the beach. And then, we're starting to do more like workshops and retreats, which is really where I'm finding like a lot of passion.
And for someone looking for this, it's all on Instagram.
All on Instagram,
yeah. Cool, man.
Chilly Willys official.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. Yeah, I'm going to get amongst it for sure, man.
Yeah,
but
thanks.
you know, and there's the purpose of this podcast. Really, is to just actually shine light on all the different areas. Because I actually started this podcast thinking, well, not actually knowing on how much there is out there. You know,
Heaps, yeah.
And then man, it's just more and more and more, and it's fucking great, man. And it's great to hear people's journeys into doing these and actually following your heart with it too, man. You know, like it's a lot of credit to you to actually go, fuck, I can actually make something happen here for others to enjoy and experience.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah. I don't think it always comes from like a hugely altruistic motive. Like there's definitely altruism there, you know, and like wanting, and like in moments where you're like, holy shit, this is having a profound impact on people. But I'm aware that there's many other motivators within my psyche. Yeah. I was laughing before because you're very logic based, head based, and I seem to be just like it's not that I don't think about things, but very like heart led, and I think it gets me into like a lot of instability.
I think that's perfect though, because when you were telling your story, and there was that recognition between you both in a 5-minute conversation that he has what I need and I have what he needs.
Big time.
In the aspect of there are internal energies that we are dominant in, and through the other I'm going to be able to learn how to balance those out and to be able to learn more of what it is that I'm needing.
Yeah.
And I love those types of relationships. They're just so synergistic.
It's so synergistic,
and it's
then,
so easy.
And then on top of that, like, we both have a strong moral compass and like a pretty sensitive bullshit radar, and like a sensitivity to doing things in an ethical way.
Yeah.
Like really, we're constantly asking ourselves, like, is this in service?
Yeah.
Is this actually worth like what we're charging? Are we doing good here? Like that, and there's that constant like push in that direction, and we're so unified on that.
Yeah.
That's a gift. Like that's really beautiful, because there's a lot of not that
Yeah.
you know, in the self-help world.
Absolutely.
So,
It's
yeah.
the
Is this what
intention.
we're calling a kundalini?
Well,
Similar?
I love listening to your story. It's very similar to myself. I would say I'm in nature probably more like yourself, but what I'm learning at the moment is actually from my partner, who is more like you, and she's teaching me a lot of the traits that you might be dealing with between you two. And what I'm noticing, because I just observe energy and just very observant around this thing, is that you, to me, like when I speak to you and when I look at you, you're still a masculine man, and you're a masculine man too. But
Thank
you
God
might
you
be
said that.
but you might be displaying more of the traits of what people would label these days as feminine energy. And I feel Like there is a huge misconception around this whole polarity, masculine, feminine thing. And I feel like, again, if I zoom out, all of nature strives to seek balance and strives to seek union. And in the past, human beings have had to evolve with one person taking one pole and the other taking the other in relationship. And we needed that to create society. We needed to create structures and everything like that. The man may have fallen into going out and hunting and foraging because biologically they were stronger, and the women bare children, so they were more nurturing and stayed at home. And so those roles were put on people, and the roles have become what we would now call masculine or feminine traits, but they're not, they're just roles. And in essence, we are striving to seek union within of the masculine and the feminine, all of us. And the trouble we may be seeing within relationships is when people grasp onto one pole or the other pole, out of fear that if they come into union, sexual polarity may be out of whack, and all of these things that we've been taught are very important. But sexual polarity is only really necessary for procreation, originally in nature. And I feel as we are maturing or evolving as spiritual beings, we're coming into union within ourselves, and we're almost seeing the effects of that in the world happening with everything that's going on with gender and everything like that. To me, it's irrelevant. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, you've opened up a can of worms there.
Yeah. I've got a few questions.
But I love that.
Yeah, do you guys want to take like?
Well, I was going to go down the path of what's your guys' thoughts then? I mean, going into a business relationship or an adventure, and also a relationship, like an intimacy relationship. Is it important to acknowledge your strengths or your positives and your your weaknesses and whatnot, and to then go and look for somebody that sort of is your opposite? Or
I think this is it. Is like we have too much choice. We actually go out to look, and I think that's one of the issues as well. Is that we have everything within us to attract the perfect counterpart. And in surrender to the process, that perfect counterpart will come together who has the energy that we need to evolve into a greater way of being.
And to accept it as well, man. Like I find a lot of the time, I find some of the times, I mean, you were going to talk about, we haven't talked about topics yet, but you were mentioning before.
List, bro.
Like surrender as well, man. Like sometimes you're like dominating, like, I don't know, do you have to surrender until we're talking about identity, like who you are?
We are complete beings. Everybody has masculine and feminine, what we would class as masculine and feminine energy within us, which I think is it's not the right title for it. It's just, maybe we'll use yin and yang. Maybe we'll use positive and negative.
Okay.
Positive penetration and negative receptivity.
I like positive penetration. Yeah.
Me too. Not negative.
Have you tried it the other way, though?
I definitely don't like negative penetration.
Negative receptivity.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm not sure. I feel like I have a very unpopular opinion around all of the what we would perceive as polarity in the field that we're in. The law of polarity itself is more to do with magnetism. It's more to do with electricity. It's more to do with energy, and has absolutely nothing to do with being a man or being a woman or being masculine or feminine.
See, I don't know if I get what you're saying, and I think you're bringing up something that's really fascinating. And I've opened up that line of inquiry myself, because it is interesting. Like, is there inherent masculinity and inherent femininity? Yeah. And that's like a tough question to answer.
100% yes for me, man.
So I agree. I end up landing on that there is, whereas I feel like you're kind of you're questioning that polarity.
I'm questioning it only I would say that it's conditioning.
See, so I don't know if it is.
Yeah.
So like,
and I'm still unsure. I'm not saying that I have the answers, bro.
Well,
I'm
not definitive.
We spoke about it before, like of growing up with just your mother, and you see it all the time, man. And I can like I've seen children in my family that you can tell if they've got a father or not, a full-time father. And I reckon a lot of the feminine characteristics come out in a young boy.
Which is all conditioning, right?
Yeah.
Well, but is it like because there isn't because I disagree in that I don't think it's all conditioning. I think there's definitely conditioning, right? Like no doubt, but a feminine instinct is real. Like and it is an instinct. Like it's not a thought.
Like nurture.
Like and that's where archetypes come from, right? Like the archetype of the Oedipal mother, the consuming, devouring mother, is so you see once you know that archetype, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, like and just for listeners maybe who don't know what that archetype is, it's the devouring mother is the archetype of a woman who loves her child so much, her identity becomes so wrapped up in nurturing that child that she begins to purposely inhibit the child's growth so that it's permanently dependent on her.
Yeah.
And so that's the archetype of the devouring mother. And a mother's instinct, if it's not corrected or there's a word but I'm not catching it. So if it's not butting up against the masculine force, can easily veer into that overly nurturing role. So we were just talking about this in the car. The Lakota tribe has a part of their rites of passage is that 2 years after the initial rites of passage, the boys cannot talk to their mother.
For 2 years.
For 2 years, because they fear that the boys will be drawn back into the feminine womb of the mother, and the mother can't help but do that. That's her instinct. It's not a conditioned thought process, it's an instinct.
But I would also say that it is an over exaggeration of one side. It's not if her energy was balanced, if she was able to balance that energy, she wouldn't display the overarching all-encompassing mother.
Right, but
mother.
even then that suggests that there's a counterbalance force, which I would say is the masculine force, the father.
Absolutely.
They should, right.
I like with my relationship, like with so my ex-partner who I've got my 8-year-old son with, like we had this understanding, and I'm not too sure where we got it from. I think it was like a book or something like that on bringing up a boy, but we were on the understanding that he was hers up until the age of 6, and then he comes over to me. And I'm not saying like we were
fucking perfect.
Like we were
reading this book now.
We were living with each other, so it wasn't like we're living in separate houses. But it was like, okay, I just need to give up that he's going to be a mummy's boy, suck on the tit as long as he wants, fucking be babied and everything. Because the things that annoyed me, because I'm like, no, he's my boy. He's got to come out here and fucking do man shit.
Which is also an instinct, though, right? Like that's like such a primal feeling. I get it with students where I might see a weak young boy. And it's like, I mean this with love. It's disgusting. Like as in it repulses me. I'm like, no, dude. Like you got to have some spine. You got to have some back about you. Like, but it's with love, like genuinely, because I know that it's a deficiency in his manhood that's going to haunt him for his whole life.
Mate, you're teaching boundaries, man. You're teaching all sorts of stuff. Like my boy knows exactly where my boundary is. He knows if he goes over it. And I'm teaching, and it's not like that you want to. I'm very careful about what I teach him in yes and no's because I want him to discover things himself. But it's
absolutely. I agree with all of you in saying that it's necessary to have that polarity throughout a certain stage of the soul's evolution. But at some point, those two poles have to come into union for the evolution to move forwards in spiritual evolution.
I agree with that. I just don't know if it's like applicable to the egoic experience. Do you know what I mean? So like in terms of like, again, that sense of lenses, looking at things through lenses. I think this is where spirituality for me becomes like a sketchy field, like because I'm deeply spiritual and have a deep spiritual practice and really do believe in this sort of like transcendence of polarity into oneness. Yeah. While at the same time recognizing that it's a perspective that transcends this life that we're living. And so there are laws within this life that we're living that we have to contend with, even though they're not the ultimate truth.
Yep.
Because at this level of existence, they are true.
Absolutely.
You know, at least true in that they are. Do you guys know the words a heuristic?
No.
So it's like a heuristic is it's something that's true because it works, essentially. Like it's a good fundamental rule. It's as good as a truth, even if it's not factually true.
For sure.
You know, and so it's like we need these heuristics.
Yep.
To go by, like feminine, masculine.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I get that 100%, and I agree with you as well. But at the same time, even as we were speaking before, is like a person who is just living a life as a personality and an ego, at some point when they have the realization that they're not that, then still has to live within the world, but from this new perspective.
Right.
And that is what is happening constantly in nature. But we're on an earth that is full of a school of all different grades of soul evolution. Mm-hmm. So the world itself, not the earth, runs from a polarity perspective. But if you are able to become balanced within yourself to the point of a new lens, looking through a new lens, you still have to operate within that world. But you have the perspective from the new lens. If that makes sense.
It does. It's a difficult needle to thread to walk that path. I think the spiritual path is really difficult for that reason.
It takes a bit of time too, man. And I find this a lot.
It's a life journey,
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of beautiful it is beautiful how you speak, and you speak like in masculine and feminine and polarity, and you really go into the depths of it and like maybe the divinity of like where like its ultimate source is. And I feel like maybe what you're alluding to, Steph, is like there's a beauty in the simplistic aspect of being like that's masculine and feminine, but then also you're saying, which I agree with, is like not to attach to it too much, which I've, especially in this new age of masculinity, being like, this is how you're going to be a man, you know what I mean? Like I found myself attaching to that too much. And there is an aspect of me, like we're all on a spectrum, right? There's some males that are like just units, like they're proper masculine, you know what I mean? But like they can integrate that. You're just a picture of
the
masculinity.
epiphany of it.
But then it's like integrating that, and then you have maybe men that are more on the feminine spectrum, but there's still an aspect of like integrating that as well. And I guess you see in the formative years as a boy growing, there's just so much that can go wrong. And it's fascinating. I'm pretty sure the book you're alluding to was Raising Boys by Steve Biddle.
I think it was that, yeah.
And I'm reading it right now.
Yeah?
And he talks about from the age of like 0 to 6 is where the boy just needs love and safety, which is typically created from the mother. And then from 6 to 14 is when the boy starts to imitate the father. So I was like, cool, I got 6 years to just become the best man, the best father. And then from 14 is when it goes out into the greater community and it starts looking for role models, which is really then another beautiful topic of like, it takes a village to raise a boy or a child.
Oh, like my boy is so blessed, man. You got to allow it to happen. I mean, even like Ants is his uncle, and you know, like just seeing the relationship they have and allowing them to have it. You know, his grandfather. Yeah, man. And you got to allow that to happen. I mean, it's sometimes hard as a parent to allow other people to have their influence on your children, but it's super important, man.
This just came to when we spoke about it in the car, is like, and I guess you were alluding to it with the Lakota thing, is they spend 2 years away from their mother because it's such a risk for them to fall back into boyhood that it might put their tribe in jeopardy. And in today's society, we're just so comfortable that we don't need to worry about that, but it doesn't serve our greater community.
It doesn't serve our fucking souls either. I just know from many conversations about my own internal world as well, I want war.
Challenge,
I want to have, but like, not because I want to hurt anyone, but because I want something of deep meaning and gravity. Like, and I feel it's part of the suffocation of this modern society is that it's like nothing fucking matters. Like in this sense that I can do whatever. I could sit in my room and play Xbox all day and the world goes on.
Yeah.
And then especially,
And there is an impact on my soul. There is an impact on my community, but it's a subtle impact. It's not like I'm in the Lakota tribe and because I didn't have my shit together, we missed that kill. You know, like that's a problem to navigate. That's like really something to solve. That's a part to me of like what men's work is actually out here to answer. It's like, how can we start to build up this lost masculinity, but in a way that's relevant to modernity.
Yeah, I think you hit it. It's because that energy inside you is the shadow side of that is actual war. Like that is the shadow side of it because there hasn't been the outlet to be able to express that in a healthy and safe environment.
I would go one step further, bro, and say the shadow side of that is perpetual distraction. It's this like playing video games that satisfy that competitive edge. It's like going out and fucking heaps of chicks because that's like a competition. Yeah,
but it's the same manifestation.
Yes.
It's exactly the same. It's a different manifestation of the same energy because it still doesn't have the healthy outlet.
Yes.
And the boys that aren't going to war now, they're just going to war on computer screens.
Exactly.
And it's like, we need to have that outlet because it's in all of us. It's in women as well. The Kali energy, it's in everyone. There is this energy inside us that needs to challenge and it needs to be challenged. But it needs to do so in a way that it feels triumphant and it feels like it has been expressed and heard and respected and honored. And when you do not have respect and honor, you get retaliation. And when you have retaliation, you get wars and bloodshed and all of these things.
So what are some good, healthy ways of doing this as a male? Like, I'm thinking ice baths. You know,
that is something, stuff like that. I think it's why it's so
Sweat
trendy.
lodges.
Sorry. Go on.
I think it overarchingly is like learning to submit to something greater. And I have this theory that like the people who, let's say the men that fall the deepest into like drugs and alcohol and all these things end up in prison. They're the ones who like can give the most, like the ones who would be at the front of the battlefield, and they have so much to give. But in this increasing secular society, I don't know, we've lost something to believe into like a greater good, and so we're just lost. And
100%. This is what the elder was for.
Couldn't agree more.
The elder was the one with wisdom that was connected to spirit and connected to earth.
Elders.
And when an elder told you what was up, you fucking listen and you submitted to the elder. And we have no elders to look up to.
It makes me
because
sad,
if the police came up to you and he was honorable and he was somebody who was respected of the community, connected to spirit and connected to earth, and told you fucked up, you listen. And we don't have that.
And respect,
we are being told this by people that just like...
Okay.
that we don't respect.
Yeah, but I think this sort of takes a conversation into an interesting path because I think that where we're finding our elders now is online. Yeah. And I think that's like what Joe Rogan has become.
Or numbed.
Pardon?
Or numbed through alcohol. And
No, but that's not an elder. Like there's these leaders
Surrogate
of masculinity.
fathers.
They're surrogate fathers.
Jordan
They're uncles.
Peterson,
Jordan Peterson,
Andrew
Joe
Tate.
Rogan. But then Andrew Tate, like he's become that as well. And there's like good versions, bad versions, questions. Like, so I find Andrew Tate questionable, for example. Like, and I haven't gone deep on Andrew Tate, so I'll say that as well. Like I haven't listened to enough of him to form a really strong opinion. But I have seen some of the caricature-ish behaviour of him, and I feel he's playing a character a lot of the time, which I don't like because I value authentic, honest communication. And I also don't like that there's a caricature of some aspects of masculinity. Like, you got to have a flashy car and heaps of bitches. Like, that's ugly to me. It's such a sham version of deep masculinity. And I know that's not his whole message as well. Like,
I'm starting to like him more. At first I was like, who the fuck is this Muppet? And then now I sort of see through the persona of like, who he is, and to actually going deep into where.
But I don't like that you have to do that. Like, I don't like that you have to search through the bullshit of his persona in order to find the nuggets of wisdom that are there. Because he does preach personal responsibility, physical discipline, like that to me, like some of the tenets of masculinity. Like I agree with him about that, and he's skeptical about this fucked up system, which is cool as well. Like I can get down with a lot of what he says, but it's a shame that it has to come through. You have to work through the bullshit of his persona first.
I like how he's upfront about it, you know, like, and we all adapt to different ways of people, you know, like I see through a lot of it, but I actually see the point, the actual point he's making, how he's going about it. I get it. But, you know, with the simple thing of like, he's saying like, look after your fucking woman and they will treat you well. Like, well, that's what I'm hearing.
Well,
man.
I think, bro, that's
Like-
what you're craving, and we're all craving it so deeply that it's like hitting a chord where you're like, oh my God, this is what I've felt I've needed my whole life. Like when I found Jordan Peterson, I was like,
oh my
Yeah,
God, I
true.
was the same. I was like, oh, this guy, he's like articulating these deep feelings that I've had but never had the words for.
Yeah.
Sorry, were you going to make a larger point?
no, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah, Aubrey Marquez is who
I like-
inspires me, man.
Yeah, I like Aubrey.
Yeah.
He's soft as well.
But he's going, you know, like some of the stuff he's talking about now. He's who's sort of like with plant-based medicines and opened a lot of those topics up for me, man, to explore.
And interesting with Jordan as well.
Yeah.
He's very incredibly spiritual these days.
Just quickly, should we quickly go through the topics? Because we haven't, you know, yeah. So
Where are we at with time? Do we have like a pressure here at all? Or just
Well, not really. I mean, we will we'll slowly wind it up soon, but I am just interested to see what topics were going to come to the table.
I'll check my phone,
I feel like we have covered like a fair few of them.
We've
in
covered
some
a lot of
aspect.
it. I don't feel like we've talked about the retreat at all, and I'd love to just like put out there what we're doing and whatnot.
For sure, man.
With that, so
So what I do on here, I'll grab your details and your logo and your contact details and what you do, and I'll put it on my website as well. So
Yeah, thank you,
anyone
bro.
that is listening to any of my podcasts, they can find you guys on the website.
Yeah,
There's
thank
also
you, bro.
Instagram as well, man, because I want everyone to do everything in Perth.
yeah. Well, what I love about this space, man, is like there's no shortage. There's no competition in my eyes at all. It's like everyone can just work together here. Like every men's group I see, I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. Like we need that. The guy that mentored me, who shout out to Mike Dyson, who runs a company called Good Blokes Co. And he's just like wants me to succeed. And I'm like supposedly in direct competition with him, you know? Like
There's an abundance out there.
Yeah,
man.
there's
So
an
good.
abundance.
Yeah.
That's it.
There's just it's
It's
fucking
not a zero-sum
beautiful.
game.
Not
No,
in
that's
the
right.
slightest. I think it.
Well,
it-
if your
it
intentions
grows.
are right with it and wanting to support and help, I guess, mental health or whatever it may be, you know, I mean, you shouldn't have any sort of resistance about it, I guess.
Couldn't
but, yeah.
agree. No, couldn't agree more.
And support, man, yeah.
So the retreat, I actually just looked through the list of topics, and we've pretty much covered everything.
Why do you say them?
You want me? Okay, I'll say the
Read
list
them
of
out.
topics. The war on masculinity was the first one, which we haven't really directly talked about necessarily, but I feel like we've sort of like touched on it
a little bit.
throughout like a lot of
Part
our
two.
conversations. And yeah, I think it'd be an interesting one to explore because I do think there is a war on masculinity.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's a conscious war,
No.
meaning that there's someone somewhere going like, let's do a fucking war on masculinity.
Yep.
I just think that it's a byproduct of a lot of the movements in our society and like a certain zeitgeist in our society.
I could even go as far to say as it's a resistance to this natural unfolding that's happening as we evolve. I feel like
I like that.
there is like a natural evolution of men that are evolving, and there is a resistance or a grasping onto the past and the old. And what is actually needed is more surrender from everybody involved to this process that's unfolding, and just more presence in the present moment and accepting
That's the key.
where we are.
I talk a lot about just diving into your the uncomfortable, man. Try new things.
Just accept yourself, man. It doesn't matter where the fuck you are. Just love and accept yourself.
Yeah, but there's like
topic solved.
I fucking I love that. I love that, but it's also like a dangerous message because it's like it's on once again it's perspective thing, right?
Yeah.
Like accept yourself, but if you're sitting in a room eating Cheetos playing Xbox and you're 20, 30 kilos overweight and you haven't seen the light of day this week,
Yeah.
then you've got fucking issues.
No,
But I
But
would
it-
go
like-
as far to say is that's because they don't accept themselves.
hang on a minute,
Is
just-
the reason that they're in that,
That's
you
where it
know?
gets interesting.
If
yeah.
you're happy and not hurting anybody doing that,
Yeah.
are you doing anything
Yes.
Yes.
wrong? You reckon?
You are, yeah.
Really? To
Yeah,
yourself?
because you have a responsibility to the world as well. Like, we aren't just in this alone for us. Like, it matters what we do. And maybe it doesn't
But if
matter
they're,
what we
if
do
they're
at
sincerely
some
happy,
super big
like
level.
they're sincerely happy.
It would depend on what's playing out in their life, right? Like,
Because
if-
they could equally turn around to us and go, man, I just don't fucking see what you guys
I would argue and say that they're not happy.
Yeah.
I would say there are certain
hard to imagine
principles
that.
within life
Yeah.
that equate to happiness. One of them being a contribution to society, and lots of different aspects that maybe somebody like that may not be having in life.
It's a hard hypothetical to play out, right? Because it's like it's putting contradicting things together. It's
Yeah.
like this person doing clearly unhealthy and unhappy things, and then saying, "Well, what if they're happy?" And it's like,
Not that I'd encourage my son to do exactly what you're saying there, but
Yeah.
I do say to my children, as long as you're happy and not hurting anybody else, you pretty much got my.
Yeah.
But the not hurting anybody else is where it gets sketchy. It's like, because sometimes we don't know we're hurting other people until it's too late. And sometimes we hurt people indirectly or by our inaction. You know, like, even you think about the start of this conversation with, like, have we risen up and stood up for ourselves against our governments, given what's going on? And the answer is no, we haven't. And a part of that is because we're soft and weak. And so that hurts people. And if people were developed and had really instilled a backbone, a truth making sense, that's not very well said, but whatever. And then we can fight the fights we need to fight. And this is repeated throughout all of history. Alexander Solzhenitsyn says in his books on the Gulag Archipelago, the line between good and evil runs through every man's heart, in the middle of every man's heart.
Agreed.
And the point of that is that what led to the terrors of communist Russia, the Soviet Union, was the evil that every man let happen in front of him. And if everyone had stood up and said no to the obvious evils in front of them, then the horrors that took place wouldn't have. Same for Nazi Germany. That's why it's important to know these things. But it's also the role of a strong man. Like the best antidote to a tyrannical man is a strong, good man on the opposite side of the ledger. And so that dude sitting in the room eating Cheetos, playing Xbox, it's very hard to imagine he's going to be a strong man that can stand up to the tyranny that's coming. So
I agree to an extent as well, but a good strong man in this day and age, unfortunately, if I walk over to him and put a bullet between his eyes, isn't a big strong man. There is new weaponry and new arts of war these days that aren't you don't even need an army.
I don't mean physically strong. I mean spiritually strong, mentally strong. And I really think you nailed it in what you said before. It's about presence.
Yeah.
It really is. David Died Away of the Superior Man. Pretty much the whole book is a theme of presence.
Yeah.
That's a good book, man.
It's a good book. But it is. It's just, can you be present? And like, the difficulty of presence is that we want to shy away from what's difficult, that's like with your woman as well. In my last relationship, I had these so many breakthroughs, and all it was is I just learnt to sit in presence with what was going on. Whereas before I wanted to change it. I wanted to enforce my will on things.
Yeah.
I wanted to, or I would want to just avoid myself in the situation as well. And it was remarkable. I just sat in presence with so much. It was nearly like an experiment for me, and I just didn't interfere. I just sat and let things play out, let them play out, and then what naturally arose in me, I let it out. And it was the most beautiful, harmonious, blooming relationship I ever had.
Yeah.
And it was mystical as well, in that I was constantly like, how the fuck did that pan out so well? Like, it just wasn't by my own doing, it was through presence.
Yeah.
And that's what shatters me. Like, the thing that gives me the most shame and is the most difficult to navigate, and I see this as like the battle of our time for a lot of men, is how destructive this is. because it takes us away from presence. You know, like this is the dummy. It's the adult dummy. You suck on the dummy, shut the fuck up, you know, go on Instagram, scroll that. Like that's going to take you away from feeling this moment, feeling even the boredom of your life.
What's your relationship like with that, man?
Horrendous. Horrendous. I've gone through phases with it, but since I've gone into this line, wanting to go into this line of work, which is pretty recent for me, it's like this year, last year I began.
When you say horrendous though, like what?
Bro, bad, really bad. Like
Well,
I don't want to
what does that look
sugarcoat
like?
it. So on Sunday, I'll give you an
yeah.
example, right? Because I'm really struggling with it right now. I'm on 6 weeks of school holidays. I've got these ambitions. My life is playing out in this beautiful way. I've got this like kind of polarity in my own life where I'm having every door I could have imagined open up to me, open up. You know, like, and it's beautiful. And I'm having these profound moments in holding space in these circles and breath workshops and all this kind of stuff, meeting beautiful people like left, right and centre. So it's fantastic in one sense. Then I go home. I went home after Chilly Willys on Sunday. I meditated for an hour, which was great, you know, sat there and fucking got zenned out. And then I got up. I was like, I'm not sure what I'll do. I looked at my phone. At about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, didn't get it off till 11 o'clock at night.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, so bad, really bad. And then it was upsetting as well. Like I felt like I was nearly distraught about it. And and I hate admitting this on a public.
Man.
But it's the truth.
I appreciate it, man. And the reason why I wanted to ask is because what have we got to judge ourselves to? You know what I mean? Because I mean, I get dirty on myself if I've been on it any longer than an hour. But I do find, I know what you mean, man. Like it's sort of like, especially now not drinking as well. Like you'd go to the pub, have a beer, or you know, and it's like
that dopamine hit.
Yeah,
it is
searching for something.
It's always something, right? Because I've cut out drugs, alcohol. Look, for the most part, every now and then I will, but it's no crutch anymore. I don't watch porn, which I think porn's a fascinating conversation, right?
Yeah.
And I like. Somehow I've gotten past that, and like it nearly feels like a miracle. And now I'm like horrified. I'll never go touch it again because I'm like, if I open that gate even once, I'm fucked. You know, it's back open. So I'm like so scared of porn now. It's hilarious, but so I've cut all these things out though, and it feels so good to have won those battles. Yeah. But then something else.
You've replaced it.
Creeps back in,
you know.
So how do you go about something like that, man? Like I
think you just allow it.
No.
I think there's always going to be something. And you, as something comes up and you become aware of the overuse, then you address it and you make changes
because
to make
if
it
it's
so
chronic. If it's chronic, then maybe.
Oh, go on.
So is that chronic?
I would say so.
That's fucking idiot.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Like, because I say all the time, I just go, you know, like when I'm like not drinking this year and things like that, it's like I say to people, fuck, there's only so many times I can walk around the river.
Yeah.
So many times. But I get bored easy, so I can't actually sit there on Instagram, Facebook, because I actually fucking lose interest in it. Lucky enough.
That's awesome.
That's really good.
Dude, I lose interest as well, but it's like I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's
I'm
chemicals.
not even enjoying the fucking thing. Like, that's what's so infuriating about it.
It's a drug.
True.
This might be like controversial, I don't know, but you're talking about like just being real and honest, and it's like in modern day society that can be accepted and you can live your life and be comfortable, but it's not. It's fucked.
Yeah.
I spend my like every evening on my phone. My partner's on my phone as well. Like we have a lack of intimacy. I used to watch YouTube. I couldn't go to sleep without watching YouTube. These like are these insidious toxic traits that are like going to cripple me, you know what I mean, and leave me internally restless, and it sucks the soul out of me, and I hate it. And I think this is like, for me, what keeps coming back is like there's this lack of initiation from boy into man, and I feel like I'm a boy in a man's body, in a 6'6" body, and I need to go spend. I feel like I need to go spend a month away. This is why boys go in the army, you know, or like I have felt this real pull towards the army at one point as well in my life. Like I enlisted, and then I do feel lucky that I never went in the army, but there's this like deep want to just go and spend a month away in nature or something to break all the habits and strip everything back. And
that's what the retreat is.
Honestly, I was going to say, let's do that.
I could sell the fucking retreat just on that one thing.
Yeah.
You can't have your phone at the retreat. You don't even get your watch.
Yeah.
Nothing. That's it. You disconnect 4 days, you're gone.
Love that.
And then it's like all day, every day, it's meditation, yoga, breath work, men's circle, meditation, yoga,
Nature.
men's circle, nature. But bro, the shit we talk, it is like, by the second day, everyone's cacking themselves laughing every moment. Like, it's hilarious. We're bonded. It can switch from like deep shares of like the most fucked up thing you've never said to anyone, tears flowing, to like hilarious dick jokes the next second, you know? And that's like, to me, that's so important, man. It's so important that this doesn't become too serious and too sacred, where it's like, where no one can just have a fucking laugh. And like, that's what I feel like we're bringing to the table here, is like, yeah, we want you to be real, yeah, we want you to go deep, but also you don't have to surrender up the playful bullshitty aspect, which all of us men, what's the most fun dudes have is hanging out with other dudes talking shit. It's so much fun. Like, and the retreat is that. Plus, you don't know.
That was the best thing about fucking single cab utes, man. You're stuck in there with the boys, man, especially the 3-seater ones, and you're driving down a Mandurah or something, and the amount of shit talk is fucking spoken. But it's some of my best memories. But so integration though, bro. Like, so you go on these retreats, you do all that, and you know, even with ayahuasca and things like that, and fuck, it's almost integration back into society, you know, especially if you're talking about your phones or the people you're around. And
we factor it in, bro. So the retreat's based on the hero's journey, the archetypal hero's journey, which was like sort of revealed by Joseph Campbell. It's like the through line of most mythological tales. And you start off at home in comfort. So at the start of the retreat, we make it a really comfortable, welcoming, inviting place. And we do that by playing games. We have like a lot of introductory exercises. It's a lot of fun on the first day.
Is it in Perth or
It's in Bridgetown.
Okay.
Yeah, down south on this beautiful property. It's like a full glamping setup. It's pretty glamorous. And the chef is a fucking weapon as well. Like, he's a little magic man.
When's the next one?
Australia Day long weekend.
Oh, right.
Nice.
Yeah, cool, bro. You're welcome to come along if you want.
Fucking love to, man.
It's something that
I always get challenged by my guest, and I end up doing it. You know, if it's semen retention to fucking you know, detoxing or going on some retreat or
So we set up that container. Then the second element of the hero's journey is you get confronted with your problems. So the second day we do a breath work, which is really oriented around trauma and trauma release and confronting the traumas in our lives. And then there's a lot of guided introspection and reflection after that. And then the next part of the hero's journey is overcoming our problems. And so it's the battle with the dragon, and in the hero's journey, the archetypal story, all of the treasure is found underneath the dragon. You have to go slay the fucking monster, right? And so that's what the third day is. It's slaying the monster. It's like confronting our problems, but overcoming them. And that's done through like a really amazing breathwork practice that's super unique. It's called the Lion's Roar, and it is like, bro, you can't.
Talking about it today, and
don't give it away.
We can't. But it is like fucking kick you in the dick profound. It's seriously something else.
Sweet. Yeah. And how often are you having these retreats? Because I'll probably just start to wind it up now, but I just want to make sure we've got all the information about what you boys are doing.
Yeah, cool. So at the moment, it's like 3 to 4 times a year. Yeah, and we're looking at doing one internationally, because Ryan will be over in Ireland in sort of around June, July.
Nice.
Yeah,
but it's not firm at the moment. Yeah, and I'll just finish quickly on that. I know I'm getting the sense we need to wrap it up. But then the fourth day is all about bringing the gold home. And so that's where all the integration is, and that's like a lot of visions and real like accountability set up. So we have participants actually become each other's accountability partners to check in, and then we do 2 circles after the retreat where we meet up and check in with how people have.
I like that, bro. Yeah, because that's some of the biggest part of the whole thing, isn't it?
It's so hard,
It's hard to manage, man. Like, we're still figuring it out for sure.
And I think that's why I'd love to just go away for a month. You know, and then I'd feel like I'd come back raw, but with broken all habits.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they'd creep back in. Well, I don't know.
It's a choice we have to make every day, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to find that balance though sometimes, man. I always get my best inspiration, and like when I ran because I used to own quite a big business, but I was fortunate enough that I could take off every couple of weeks or 3 weeks, even if it's just down south. But I just found if I maintained that, I was always just coming back firing, full of energy, and you know.
And the fact that we're aware of these crutches and that we're conscious of them, there's a lot of people that aren't, and they don't care. They're just in it. We're aware of it. We get to choose. And even if we have to keep repeatedly choosing and choosing and choosing before anything happens, if I look at my history, I don't drink, I don't smoke anymore. I used to. I don't take drugs on occasion, not hard ones. But I used to, and there were things that I didn't think that I would ever get over. But I knew that at some point I wanted to get over it. And before then, I didn't. I was just in it. And then at that point, I kept choosing and choosing and choosing. And finally, same with porn, all of that sort of stuff.
You can win the battle.
You can.
You can
Yeah.
actually
You can.
fucking win the battle.
But isn't that the key of it, man? Like you just keep stepping up, man.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is cultivating strength within us.
And you're just making those good choices more regular than the bad ones, you know? Like I'm sort of guiding a few boys on the outside, man, through addiction. And, you know, I mean, unless you're a fucking superhero, if you're fully addicted to some hard drugs, man, it is. I mean, I can remember when I was trying to get off cocaine, man, I used to look at it on a Monday and go, fuck, you know, all right, just this week. I was thinking a week, and that seemed like a 6-month plan. And it was like, how the fuck am I going to get through that, you know? But now I look back at it and just think, fuck,
There's so much beauty in this as well, and it's like you said, it's not being Superman. And I think
micro changes.
All of us as well, I think opening up the narrative that like we all struggle. Even you talking about like I struggle with my phone, because there's so much shame around thinking like I can't say that because no one else is going through it and I'm shameful and blah 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 blah. You can be in higher positions, you can be holding space for a whole bunch of other guys, but you can also be struggling through your own things. And I think it's just about having the courage to talk about it and then be like, cool, like I'm going to make steps towards trying to fix this.
I was telling you boys when, you know, I had all this podcasting gear and it was stored for like 8 months before I even set it up and done a podcast. And that was purely like working with myself of thinking, am I good enough to do this, you know? And, you know, man, it's all about struggle. It's all about being honest. There is never a good time, you know, and also like what we were talking about before. And I say this to my son as well, you know, like you're going to fall over. I mean, if you're not exploring, I mean, if you're not falling over, you're not really exploring as well. Or learning. You know? Or learning. And
Yeah.
Love that.
All right, boys. I feel like there's going to be a part 2 to all
I was going to say halftime intermission, bro. Let's keep fucking going, man. I'm loving it.
I want another cup of cacao.
That's it.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thanks, boys, for being on board, man. Thanks for coming back on board, Lukey.
Pleasure, bro.
I would like to part 2. I mean, look, and I say this to all my guests, man, I was fortunate enough to get all this gear together and start up this podcast, but the doors are always open, so I'm sure you guys will be back on, man. I want to encourage more men's groups and more vulnerability and shared of knowledge and our journeys and stuff, man. So I really appreciate you boys being on board.
It's a huge pleasure. So, thank you very much.
It's been an honour to sit here with such powerful fucking men.
Fuck yeah.
Back at you, lads, man.
Yeah, likewise.
And thank you for making the investments of your money and your time to build this space, bro, because I think that is it. That's the work. Like, make the space and the people will come. So I appreciate what you're doing, man.
I
really.
probably need to step it up to maybe 6 seats, eh? Like,
this is nice, man. This is
nice
crazy. I like it.
I think it's really lovely just to like connect on a deep level as well.
Yeah.
I love the aspect of a podcast where you're super intentional with your time and you get to know someone.
Yeah.
Maybe more real than some of your close friends.
Yeah, for sure, man.
For sure.
Definitely.
And I think the more that people see that, the more permission it gives them to be able to do the same.
I agree.
So only good things come, bro.
Yeah. All right, boys, we'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Beauty.
Thanks,
Sweet.
bro.
Cheers, bro.
See ya.